Yo, I can't hear you. Let me make sure that's not me on my side. Okay. Hang on. Headphones. There we go. All right. What up, everyone? You can hear me okay?
Hello. Okay, that should work. We can't hear him. Okay, Cam, can you say some stuff, please?
Test 1, 2, 3. Can you
Okay,
hear me now? Okay.
perfect. Okay,
Test
you should,
one,
in theory,
two.
you guys should now be able to hear both of us.
Yes, one,
Can
two.
you hear
Talking,
us?
talking. Um, okay. Um, there we go. Test 1, 2.
Um, we can't hear.
You,
I swear you guys should be able to hear me now. Oh, there's always a bit of a delay,
yeah,
isn't there, on the
yeah,
live stream?
yeah.
Your mic isn't working. We can't hear you. We
Ali,
can
someone
now.
saying,
Perfect. Okay, we're
yeah,
good.
awesome. Someone says you look like Harry Potter, which is
Oh, classic.
hilarious.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Cool.
Oh, crap, my screen just went blank. Sorry, my
It's
screen
okay.
randomly goes blank at times, and I have no idea what happens.
Yeah.
We're back. Right, hello everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Deep Dive, featuring Cam. Cam, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm chilling. Ali, I'm really honored to let you know that we have a special guest who's here with us today, who's down here. This is Pinky, and she's kind of a diva. So I don't know if you can see, but that's my cat, in case you
Why,
still can't
why
see.
is why is she called Pinky?
Because that's what my girlfriend wanted to name her. And she's like, I do so many of these sessions now where I get in front of the camera and she just like jumps in my lap every time. I was on a session last week and just like, now I think the internet likes her more than me, which is like not weird for the internet, right? The internet loves cats, but yeah, this is just how things go.
I was showing one of my
Well,
videos to a friend of mine, and she was saying that I should get a dog slash cat purely for that reason because it just looks so good on camera.
I think that's like the secret to success in life, not just video. It's if you surround yourself with cute animals, you basically get to win. That's kind of what I have done. So yeah, that's been kind of the secret to how I've pulled things off.
Amazing.
Um,
Cool.
yeah.
So this live stream is called Zoom Era Entrepreneurship, which I think is a phrase taken from your website. But usually I end up just using these sessions as basically free coaching from people who are more experienced than me in different domains, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'm cool with us taking this conversation wherever you want. I can see the chat. A lot of people are giving Pinky lots of love, so I'll pay attention to that as well in case there's anything we really need to cover. But I figured we would talk about, yeah, what it just means to be on video, entrepreneurship, figuring out life, because it's just a weird time.
It's a
So
very weird time.
wherever you want to take us,
Perfect.
I'm happy to go there, Ali.
So I wonder if we could get started. So last time we spoke, I didn't really ask much about your background. So like, how did you get to where you are? I wonder if you can kind of do an intro for the fans.
Sure. I'll give you all just a super quick intro. I'm a four-time entrepreneur. My first two startups failed. So just a big shout out to y'all that like your first stuff will fail. And the other thing is no one will remember it. My first startup was trying to be the SoundCloud of sports commentary. So when you watch like a football game, there's two announcers. And like, I think that's ridiculous. You should have a channel of a comedian cracking jokes. You should have a stats nerd going deep on stats about a game. You should have like, we have barely any women commentators, right? So there should be more stuff going on there. My next startup was like, that one failed because we couldn't figure out the business model. My next one, I went to like, where do people spend lots of money? Because we couldn't figure out the business model. In the United States, that's weddings. People spend like stupid amounts of money on weddings. So we went after the American wedding industrial complex. That also sucked and went nowhere. And by this point, I'm loving being an entrepreneur. And so my third company was me and some other people just really pissed off about how they teach it in school. In school, it's very, here's information and, use this information to go do things. And I never found that really helpful. So our whole model was, let's get university students in a room, have them start companies. And even if they start the worst companies ever, they'll learn from that process. So I have heard like the worst startup ideas ever. I have heard like, You know what was like a really common startup idea is a dating service where you can rent a dog or a cat to go, like rent a dog, go take on walks, and then people
Oh,
ask about the cute dog, and then you meet a
nice.
cute person. That's an idea I've heard like a lot. Like a lot of people have thought about that. I've heard of like every variant of Tinder possible, certainly the doctor one.
Yeah.
So that's been a thing. I'm surprised there's not a YouTuber version of this already. But anyway, so this company, it caught on. And I was going to quit if this one didn't work, but it did. So it started at the University, which is where I'm from in Austin. And now it's in about 50 countries. It's all over the world. We've served like 20,000 people. But after doing that for a decade, I left. And so I just was ready for something new. And so now I'm on my fourth company. But basically, my whole things are we want to think the adults are in charge and they know what they're doing. They don't. No one knows how the world works. And the best way to figure it out is just to take action. So that's kind of a lot of the stuff I teach. And yeah, I can go deeper in any of that, but that's it
So what's your current
for
company
now.
doing?
So ActionWorks is what I do now. I had done like governments pay me to build entrepreneurship program, universities pay me to build innovation programs, and corporates pay me just to do like corporate innovation work. And like all corporations on the outside, they look like this nice, orderly thing where everyone knows what they're doing. But behind the scenes, it's just like monkeys throwing poop at each other. Like no one knows what they're doing. Technology is just as scary to them as everywhere else. And so I teach them kind of startup approaches to stuff. But a lot of what I do now is video, just because I'd always done some of that virtually. And video is basically, I think, this medium that is like the next medium of the future. And so a lot of what I'm teaching is how do people get used to not feeling the despair of being on camera and like freezing up, and how to use it in a professional way, right? Like I totally admire you for your baller channel you've built. I have like barely any subscribers. But for me, it's been this really big deal of sending, I make a lot of videos for an audience of one. And I think that this is a really huge thing coming down the pipe where it doesn't take a lot of time and energy to get a setup where you can do really powerful stuff just with your own video without, you don't need to spend a ton of money and you don't need to be a professional. I just like to teach people these sorts of approaches. And so that's a lot of what I do now.
So what kind of stuff have you seen in terms of these alternative approaches to video? What stuff have you seen people do that works?
Okay, so just to get like very specific, my girlfriend, the way she got her job, she does UX, was after the interview, she sent a little video that said, "Hey, thanks for the opportunity." The thing was 30 seconds long. And we saw the view count on it, right? Like YouTube view counts are kind of all over the place, but this thing was seen by less than 10 people. And so for them, it was just really like we saw that it got forwarded around. And when she got the offer, they said, "Hey, we forwarded this around the entire company. It really let us know things about you that we couldn't know through the interview and through the job process or through the interview process." And the other thing is like, I don't know about you, Ali, but like, I don't know, I'm a musician, right? So I'm from Austin. And if you live in Austin, Texas, you play music. That's just kind of how it works. And there are performances when I'm in my bedroom by myself and I sound like incredible and amazing. And then when you're on stage, sometimes you're just not there. Like it's just, you're not as smooth or as sharp or I actually curious, do you have this? Because, you're always like the Ali we see in the videos, but I'm assuming there's lots of takes behind the scenes where you're stuttering and stumbling and
God,
all
yeah.
that.
It takes me about an hour to film like a 10-minute video with all the sort of restarting, and every time I make a little mumble, I clap my hands so I see the editing waveform, and so my editor can be like, "Okay, we want to chop at this bit." Yeah, it takes ages to get right.
Yeah. So the whole thing about video that I love is that you can capture your best performance. Like you can just, if you say it great once, you have this video that you can use. So like another thing that I do a lot is, oh, y'all are saying such nice stuff in the comments. Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Sumiran. So another thing that I think is like, I really believe in is if someone asks you questions, like if you get asked a question a lot, I teach entrepreneurs, so people ask me questions about entrepreneurship all the time. And there's some very basic stuff about when do I hire my first developer, or how do I know if my idea is good? And what I do is, if you just record a video of you answering that question, the next time someone asks you, you can just send them the link to that. And when you do that, it has links to your email list, to your channel, to all this other stuff. And some days you don't really feel like, I don't know, I'm an introvert, right? I can smile and I can be charismatic and all that stuff, but my battery gets worn down doing that. And when I just send people to my video, that's capturing me, energetic, feeling it, right? Whereas some days, like, I just don't have it in me to be like a charming, friendly dude. I mean, I'm friendly, but like some days I have resting bitch face,
Okay, so your girlfriend used video to get her first job. Do we have other examples of? i- Is it always in that kind of context where you can impress an employer by making a video for them? Um,
That's a great question. Dude, Ali, you've done your homework, man. I'm grateful and appreciative of that. Um, and so that's like one very kind of typical context. Another one is a lot of people don't have jobs and they want to get jobs. And so that's like, how do you get a job? A lot of us, especially if you're at the beginning of your career,
mm,
like you're a young person, you're an entry level job, you didn't get to do the work you wanted to do. There's someone older and more senior than you who's doing the more fun, creative work. You're doing the less fun stuff. You are a spreadsheet jockey, or you're writing code for cleanup code versus, all that kind of stuff. And so you got a job, but you're not doing the work you love doing. One thing that's cool about video is it's a way to demonstrate and show expertise in the part that you want to be doing that you're not currently doing, right? So even if you're like a lot of people, they wait for their boss to give them a project related to the type of work they want to do. And that's fine, but that might take forever, right? Whereas if you just start researching, learning about a topic and sharing videos on it, it's things that again, if the internet watches your videos, that's great. But you can also just use those internally at your company and they begin to see, hey, this person also knows about this topic. And again, a lot of the challenges are like they just don't even know you have that awareness. And if you're an introvert, sometimes we're a little hesitant to raise our hands and say, hey guys, I also know about this. Especially like I do a lot of work internationally, and in the US, like young people have no problems telling old people that they're stupid. But there are lots of cultures where if you were to check or to criticize someone who's a boss or significantly older than you, that's really, really inappropriate to do in that particular culture. And so video is a way just to, again, show your expertise. And the way I see it is, even if you do this and it doesn't create any value, the other thing that like kills me, if you're a young person with a job and you want to be doing more with your career, all the great work you do, it's behind those walls. Like the fact that Ali like takes us on his journey of like, you're a Notion expert, right? And so the world gets to see you sharing your knowledge around Notion and around so many things. And so now we associate you with being able to do that kind of stuff. Whereas if you're the Notion expert in a particular company, either no one knows that, or the way they find out about it is in a job interview where you have to tell them, and then they have to believe you. Why not just see your work out in the world, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, hey, question, Ali, I have a question for you.
yeah.
You recently took the plunge. You left some more kind of straightforward work, and can you tell? I want to know what you're feeling and thinking about that, because a lot of our questions in the chat are, "Hey, I want to start something. I'm not quite sure about it." I would be curious to know what's going on in your head, and like, were you, oh, I've got this, or moments of terror and desperation, or you know what, if this doesn't work, I'll just go back to school. Like, what's going on in your head when you made this transition?
Yeah. Okay. So I think I've always subscribed to the model that when you're starting an entrepreneurial venture, it kind of makes sense to do it in your spare time initially, to initially start off doing it as a side hustle, because then you've got your main gig and, you build it up on the side. And once it gets to a point where you know it's going to get traction, at that point, then it's, quote, safer to quit your job and kind of do the thing. And so for me, like, I've been doing like the entrepreneurship thing since like my second year of university, so from the age of 19, and that started to get very successful pretty quickly. I say I started at the age of 19. I actually started at the age of 12 doing loads and loads and loads of websites, freelancing, trying to create these get-rich-quick schemes. None of that worked, but 7 years later, when I landed on a decent idea and I executed it well, it started to work. And so at that point, I was making reasonable amounts of money every year from these side businesses while being a medical student. And so it was kind of second nature for me to be doing this business stuff on the side. And I think that's kind of what made it fun, that it wasn't my full-time job. And so I started at 19, and then sort of 7 years later at the age of 26, I'm now at I was at the point where there was a very natural career break where lots of people take time out of full-time medical training to maybe travel the world for a year, or to work in Australia for a year, or to kind of pick up some extra shifts in London, or get some more experience. So I thought, hey, you know what? I'm making money off this internet thing. Why don't I travel the world? And then the whole coronavirus thing happened. So now I'm like, well, I can't really travel the world, but I can just chill in Cambridge at my desk. Got a nice desk set up. Got the camera right in front of me. I could just kind of focus on the YouTube channel and on the business side of things. And that's been really, really fun. Like, I was very concerned initially, and this is something I wanted to talk to you about losing the identity of a kind of full-time doctor, because it's very easy when people ask you, what do you do, to be like, oh, I'm a doctor. It's a lot harder when people ask you, what do you do, to say, well, I just kind of sit at home and make random internet videos and kind of stuff based around that. And I was really worried about that internal identity. And I was also really worried that I'd wake up in the mornings and feel a loss about what to do because I wouldn't have work to go to. I've been pleasantly surprised in that regard, in that there's not been a single second where I've missed, where I've thought, hey, I wish I was in a hospital right now trying to request a CT scan, or I really wish I was speaking to a patient right now. And there's not been a single moment where I've thought, I don't really know what to do, because things, like for me, when my time expanded to be able to devote my full attention to the YouTube channel and the businesses, things really started to take off, and it feels like every week there's like a new project going on, and it's all very exciting. So I think my trajectory is a bit different from other people in that I quit my job at the point where I knew that this was going well and it could easily fund my standard of living, if that makes sense.
No, it does. So there's a few things going on here. One is that, Ali, you had the job that is, first of all, a lot of the chat is talking about how marriageable you are.
Oh, well, thank you.
Oh, you're odd. And about how if you're a doctor, you are every parent wants you to meet their daughter, right? And there's some cultures also where, like, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're not either one of those things, you are a shame and a disgrace to your family and your community. Right. And like you said, when you tell people a doctor, they know what it is. Whereas when you say you're an entrepreneur, like a lot of times an entrepreneur is code for someone who doesn't have a job. That's not so much in the United States, but in like Latin America, that's very much a thing. And in a few other cultures, it just means you couldn't get a job if you started a company. Right. So it sounds like your story's not that different. Right. What you did was you did let's make it on the side for a while. Let's make it this thing where it's not your full livelihood. And so by the time you took the switch, by the time you did that, you already had that going on, right? You already had like de-risked a lot of it, because a lot of it's just risk, right? And a lot of like young people are like, hey, I have choices to make about my future, and some of them are right and some of them are wrong, and it's pretty easy to get hung up on those. But you just did the smart thing, which is you de-risked it, right? And you'd been doing the entrepreneurial stuff for a while. What I want to know is, what made you start? Like, did you always have the confidence to start those the first time around? Or were you scared when you started your side projects as a kid?
I don't think I was ever really scared, because I was behind the wall of internet anonymity. And I think in the early days, this would have been kind of 2005, 2006, 2007. Those were the days of like the internet forums where you would never use your real name. You would have like a screen name. And so my screen name is still my Skype username, Sephiroth64. And that was like my kind of internet nerd username for such a long time. And my first few things were, and I was trawling through my old Gmail because I got an invite to Gmail back when it was an invite only in like 2006. And I was looking through my initial emails, and I had sent emails to authors of books that I liked, saying, hey, I really like your book, and I'm a 12-year-old kid learning how to code. Can I have permission to make a game out of your book, like an online web-based game? And they all said no because of like movie rights and this, that, and the other. But like, I'm surprised by the confidence I had to send those emails. And I even emailed the Pokemon company asking, can I make an unofficial Pokemon game? I emailed Blizzard Entertainment, who run World of Warcraft, saying, can I use World of Warcraft assets on my website because I'm making a game? They all said no. But like, I think I had the audacity even back then to think, yeah, this internet thing's cool. I want to make money on the internet. And then I started doing freelance web design on a website called rentacoder.com. Where I would be trying to undercut everyone else in India doing the same thing. And because I was just like a 13-year-old kid, I could charge like $5, $10 to get stuff, and I was making my first real internet money. Annoyingly, at the time, you could only get paid via PayPal, and you had to be 18 to set up a PayPal account. So I lied about my age. And this came back to bite me like 10 years later when I had to verify my business details for PayPal, and I had to send in a copy of my driving license. And they said, 10 years ago, when you were 13, you lied about your age, therefore we are blocking your PayPal account. I was like, come on, guys, it's been 10 years. But that was how I got my start. And every year, me and my friends would try and come up with another new idea for making money. And And yeah, it was just a very bizarre
Okay.
thing. And so when I got to
Oh,
university,
guys, this
yeah,
is not bizarre. Y'all, what we now know is that Ali has a dark side, and that like he's from the shady criminal underworld, where he said that instead of being 13, he said he was older. I have a newsletter called Learning from Rule Breakers, where
mm,
all I do is like talk about the weird stuff that entrepreneurs do
yeah,
that they don't talk about
mm.
because a lot of them are a little outside of things, like how. Anyway, so you are like very much in part of that. So how did you get the PayPal thing resolved?
Oh, I didn't. That PayPal account is still blocked. That was with my Gmail address. But you know when you have an email address, you can stick a plus on the end of it, and it becomes a new email address. That is now my PayPal email address, which now because this course is going well, large amounts of money are flowing through that PayPal account. So I really hope they don't realize it's me who lied about my age at the age of 13 and freeze my funds. This is why every few months I withdraw money from PayPal into my UK Barclays bank account because I'm always concerned that what if PayPal frees there's money in it.
I think
So
I think
yeah,
that's a reasonable concern.
it
The
haunts
kind
me
of
to this day, man. It's like, this is why you should never lie, guys. Like, you end up sort of suffering through all PayPal's ridiculous foreign exchange fees just to take money out, just in case it'll ever get frozen.
I think another way to frame this, y'all, is Ali when he was there's something if you're a student, you have the student card, which means the world expects nothing of you. Like if you're a student asking a professional for help, they don't want to help some random person, but they like helping the next generation.
Mm.
And when you're a young person, you just have a different set of consequences available to you, right? You can't, you're just a young person experimenting more than you are having to play by society's rules just yet. So there's something to be said for like testing the limits of things a little bit and just being open to experiment. And, the way I see it is that you wouldn't, like your PayPal problem is that you have money into it. Like if you had like said, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't start coding, like maybe you would have found your way through here, but maybe not.
Mm.
So that initial kind of, just little nudging, pushing the envelope sounded like it created some opportunities for you. But I would continue to be like steadily moving that money out, like, and I would automate it if you haven't already.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I really should automate it. Just like at the end of the month, to just transfer to my because
Yeah.
I spent ages. It's because a lot of the revenue that my channel makes is from Skillshare, which pays in US dollars, and PayPal have this insane 5% foreign exchange fee for like transferring US dollars to pounds, and then you have to withdraw it. And I spent ages trying to find loopholes around this. Then I decided, you know what, screw it. This is just the cost of doing business. I'll have to lose
Yeah.
5% of everything just because I'm using PayPal, but it is what it is. Um,
Yeah.
a few things I wanted to ask you about. So, going back to the video front, I've been taking random notes on this car insurance document as we've been talking. You train a lot of people in kind of doing the video thing.
Hmm.
The number one objection people have when I survey people about the video thing is I am afraid to start because I'm afraid to put myself out there. How do you kind of coach people through that particular fear?
Okay. Thank you, Ali. So the thing about video is that a lot of times the reason we're scared is we think the whole world's going to see it and they're going to laugh at us. So like one of the first things that I try to teach people on is make a video for one person. Make a video that you just say hello to your friend. Record 30 seconds of like, hey, what's up, man? I was thinking of you the other day because I read that book that we both like. Anyway, hope you're good. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, but I'm really big into let's just build things really, really slowly. Because, if you think about the videos that you and I make have lighting, they have setup, they have scripts, they have editing, they have color grading, all this stuff. And that's like super overwhelming. Whereas if you just send a 10-second video to your friend, it's this discrete unit that you complete and you just send it off. And each time you do that, you're getting a little bit better.
Mm.
Like, let's say that each time you do that, you're going to see, you know what, my lighting was a little better when I was over there.
Yeah.
Or my delivery was a little better when I was over here. Something I've learned also is that sometimes on videos, I have this like stone face. I'm just like, which that's not a good look, right? In video, we're already in the screen. We're already seeing a reduced version of ourselves. It's less signal rich.
Yeah.
And so I found that like the more animated you are, the more kind of warmth comes across and the more it meets my goal, which is to make my friend have a good day, to convince someone to I'm trying to sell someone. So just doing discrete small stuff, just send a hello video. And the more you do this, you'll just improve. And so it's instead of a lot of mistakes people make when they first get started, once they get over the psychological hurdles, is it takes them like 3 weeks to make their first video because they want it to be perfect. And I'd rather you make lots of little crappy videos. And so that's kind of what I teach. The other thing I do in my courses are, we have this nice insular group. A lot of people are more okay doing video if they know they're surrounded by other beginners and the world's not going to see it. So having this nice community, and I've been building online communities for a long time from a lot of the work I've been doing. If everyone feels safe and comfortable with each other, it's a sandbox where you can play around. And it's nice to play in the sandbox before you're sharing your stuff to the world. Like honestly, like you've got a huge audience, and when you make videos, you know that they're going to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people. And that can be kind of terrifying if you think about it. So when you've got this nice community, which I'm assuming you're doing something similar, like your course is going to have the same kind of feel, that when people are inside walls, you can experiment a little more. The other thing is that once you get good at being on camera, you pretty quickly want to start pushing yourself to say more insightful things or to get bolder with your vision. And if you're always like pushing your limits, you want to try other stuff. And it's just nice to do that in like with a group of people that you feel good around, a nice kind of intimate group.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that really surprised me, and kind of going back to one of the points you made at the start, which is that everyone is sort of making it up as they go along. One thing that surprised me was that how many like real adults are also afraid of this video thing. Because initially I thought that I'm scared of putting myself out there on video is like a 13 to 16-year-old person, like kid thing, where you care about what people think. And I kind of got over that fear of what people would think when I was like 17, 18, and I kind of assumed that's like a normal thing. And so when people my age and people older and people in their 30s and 40s were messaging me being like, hey, I'm afraid to put myself out there, I was completely baffled because I just assumed that when you're a real adult, i.e. older than me, you'll just like have this stuff sorted out.
No, the adults are not knowing what they're doing. They have like technology is moving much faster than them. There's also like even one of the things that kind of tripped me up when I first got started teaching video was I assumed that digital natives would know all this stuff, and they don't either. So everybody has their own kind of sets of challenges with it. And I regularly have people who send me videos because I sent them a video and they send me one back, and they don't even know the right setting. Like they put it in private, so it can't even be seen, right? So yeah, everybody has these problems, and I actually think that much bigger challenge to being good at video is like it's the psychological thing. It's mindset, not tool set. It's the ability to put yourself out there, be okay with looking dumb. If Ollie, the fact that you like don't get embarrassed easily, that is a superpower. And I have the same thing. Like one of the things I make my students do sometimes that is like horrifying and this like freaks out everybody of all ages is I make them go to a coffee shop and order a cup of coffee and then ask for a discount. And there's some cultures where it's like very normal to ask for a discount, but in the United States, like that is just not a thing. Yeah. And so inevitably they get rejected, and the barista says like, no, sorry, you got to pay full price for the coffee. And like there's other people behind you in line, so it's like hugely embarrassing. Like I have made people who are like, execs who are like 45 years old. I've had my students at University of Texas. I'm a professor on the side. And this is like horrifying and terrifying and fear-inducing for everybody. But once you kind of expose yourself to it, you get used to it, and then you can just start charging ahead, and then you stop caring. And once you stop caring, like that is a powerful place to be, because there's so many people, the way I think a lot is there's so many people who are more talented than I am at what I do, but they're scared to get started. And so that's like my advantage, right? It's like, I'm not always like the smartest guy in the room, but I have no problems taking shots. And I didn't think that was a sustainable strategy for navigating a life. And that has been wildly powerful and successful. So I'm just all about taking action, right?
Nice. Yeah, with this coffee challenge stuff, like even though I like to think I have like sort of minimal fear of embarrassment and stuff, I initially read about the coffee challenge in the 4-Hour Workweek, and then I was interviewing Noah Kagan a few months ago, and he reminded me of it. And after that point, whenever I'd go to work, usually I would stop off at Starbucks on the way to work or at the petrol station and get a coffee or a tea. And every day I was thinking, oh, I need to ask for the discount. And I never once brought myself to actually ask for that discount. And even started like a Twitter thread where I was going to sort of write about every time I failed at asking the discount.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I know I want to do at some point. But I like even the thought of it now makes me sweat that, oh my God, I'm totally okay with putting myself, like making a random ass video where I make a fool of myself. But just asking a barista for 10% off feels like the scariest thing in the world.
So I had the same feeling at the beginning. And here's what I recommend, by the way, if this terrifies you. What I did was I would go to coffee shops that weren't in my part of town. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but at the beginning of this, like, I would only do it when I was in a different state or a different country. And the reason was I was so worried about someone seeing me in my community, in my city, and being like, "Oh, look at that guy. He's
Yeah.
like, who does what a weirdo." And so I would like whenever I would travel, I would just try on different versions of myself. Again, back to that identity question of I think we're all capable of a lot of stuff, and sometimes like your best friends and the people they know you as one way. I've heard that about people who are trying to lose weight, right? That if you lose weight, you destabilize your friend group because you were like if you were the big guy, you were the big funny guy or something, and now you're destabilizing the friend group if you suddenly become a lot more attractive or something. So I'm really big on experimenting when you're kind of solo and seeing how that works. Because for me, I just didn't like public embarrassment. And then once you get through those stages, it all changes, and then you kind of stop caring.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like I found that when there are times where I'm putting on an accent, I feel a lot more, I feel a lot less weird about doing weird things. Like if I'm putting on an American accent or if I'm deliberately putting on like a Pakistani accent, I feel like a different person, and therefore I feel, oh, I can actually say whatever I want. And I sometimes think that, well, I could just say that with my normal voice, but it feels like, I don't know, like my sense of self is rooted in this box, and when I flip to a different accent,
Or anything.
this is
All
good
right,
stuff.
cool.
This is good stuff. Okay, guys, we're back. Can you hear us? Can you see us? My goodness. Okay, hang on. Let's swap these around. Let's get rid of that. Let's add that. Okay, this should, in theory, work. I think we're back. Guys in the chat, are we back? Are we back? Testing. Hello. Can you hear me? All good.
Checks, 1, 2,
Wonderful.
3.
Yes, we were talking about this idea of putting on different identities, accents, masks, that kind of stuff, just to get sort of. I feel like this is a real like ongoing struggle. This fear of embarrassment, fear that people are going to think I'm weird.
It definitely is, right? It also like never goes away. It's very much related to imposter syndrome, which is something that I know I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs, and there's people who like you wouldn't think they would still care about this, but no, they do. It's something that you kind of face all the time. And Ali, and I'm not trying to be presumptuous, but I bet like you're such a massive success. I bet you still feel this like on a semi-regular basis. Like, am I qualified to do this? Do I deserve to be here? Something I ask myself a lot is how much was my success luck, right? And the weird thing is that luck actually plays a huge part in all of our successes, and we can't really measure that. That's one of the things that like that question can keep you up at night. It can become an existential question, and it's just not really useful to go too deep into, right? This is why like I am basically prescribe the most caveman approach possible, which is like go do stuff. If it works, do it more. If it doesn't work, try to learn from it, and then have other people. Because the other thing about being an entrepreneur that's really tough is what you don't need is the top 10 list of resources for entrepreneurs. That is not your problem. Your problem is you probably don't know a lot of other entrepreneurs. And the problems that normal people have, like if you're a student and your life sucks, you can commiserate with other students. If you have a job and your life sucks, you can talk to other people who have that job or they even don't have that same job. We all can relate to a boss. But if you're an entrepreneur, it's hard to find people whose problems are my customers aren't buying my stuff. I can't raise money. I just sold this thing and I don't know if it's going to work. And now I have this promise of delivering this product to people and I'm not sure like I know how to do it. There's like and there's also like, hey, is my family going to think I'm a failure if this doesn't work? Like there's just a lot that goes on psychologically. And so having a community is really, really powerful. And that's one thing that's cool that I think you've built is you've got this great community of people who have your back. And I think they want to see you succeed, which is super cool.
Yeah, I think the community aspect is really important. It's like the way that my brother and I talk about it on our podcast is that we all live life with these like life scripts and these like invisible shackles that we have. And so for us growing up, it was like I guess you have to do a university degree from a really good university that then gets you a job. So if you do medicine, you're going to become a doctor. If you do engineering, you'll become an engineer. Why the hell would someone do history? What the hell is the point of that? Are you going to become a history teacher? It was just the sort of invisible life script that we'd kind of read through and just had as an invisible shackle. I found that like in the absence of a physical community, you can sort of pseudo have that community through podcasts and through books. And it was through podcasts and books that I first discovered the world of entrepreneurship. And for me, when that became my information diet, when I was subscribed to like 50 podcasts, all of which were like entrepreneurs, suddenly, going out and starting a business, it doesn't seem like that big a deal because everyone that you know, i.e. the people that you're listening to while at the gym and while driving, are all doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't know, man, community is such a soft, fuzzy word. Like, what does that even mean? But it's this powerful thing that we don't really get. And it's something where, like, I really think we could do a lot more to kind of make it a more concrete thing, and make it more, like, understood, just to find people who do that. And it's also, like, I think the promise of the internet, too, is that the internet brings people together who may all be interested in one thing if that doesn't exist in your place. Like, let me ask you, when you were coming up and like navigating the world, did you have people who also saw the world this way, or did you feel were most of your friends internet friends?
Yeah, so most of my friends were doing the kind of traditional thing. But I think when I was in kind of secondary school, so middle school and high school in the US, when I was in secondary school, I had another friend who was very into this sort of being an entrepreneur thing. He was a bit more of a entrepreneur than an entrepreneur in that he would always kind of talk big and not take action. But he was the one who sort of introduced this world to me and this idea of like, you can just do stuff without asking permission for it. And I remember when I was around 11 or 12, he would encourage me to like, sign up to this new scheme that lets you get a free kind of credit card off the internet. And if you do that, you'll get cash back and that makes you money. And I would say to him that, oh, I need to ask my mum. And he would be like, why the hell are you asking your mum? Just do it anyway. And I think just before that conversation, I was a very much, I need to ask permission to do things kind of guy. And obviously, if I were to ask my mum, hey mum, can I put my my name and address on the internet in 2005? She would have been like, hell no, there's no way you're going to do that. But because my friend encouraged me to kind of disobey my mum and just not ask her for permission to do things, I think that really helped me get over that sort of permission asking mode.
Yeah. So you're getting into something, I think this is very real, which is the, permission to do things. And the thing that I really struggle with, I actually would like your advice on this. So my kind of success with video, a lot of it is like, I use it as a sales tool a lot. So like I sell to governments and to big corporations, like educational programs. And every time I like give them a deal, I was like, I'll send them a proposal, a proposal, and then a video that says like, hey, I'm looking forward to working together. And like, no one else does this. So it really helps to close deals. Right. And, so I just had like a huge win, and my partner for this course we're building, she's like, dude, you have to talk about this. It's you scored a very profitable deal and you made a lot of money, and this is what you're teaching. So it's a good indicator of that. But I feel like such an internet braggart to talk about it. And so she convinced me and we did it, but I still feel creepy about it. How do you I also I don't want to learn from people who haven't accomplished the things that I'm trying to accomplish. But when I to announce what I've this deal was like a really big deal. I'm running this kind of set of educational programs. I'm getting paid like a lot of money. It's very, very profitable. But to talk about it all, I feel like I'm one of these guys who's posing next to a Lamborghini, or the people who take pictures of themselves in front of a private jet. And I'm whenever I see those, I'm like, that's probably not even your jet. You probably just paid money to do that. How do you get over that? That's something I actually still struggle with. When you've had wins, but to share them is to sound like you're bragging.
Yeah, this is a constant struggle, an ongoing struggle. In fact, in last week's episode of my podcast, me and my brother spent sort of an hour and 40 minutes just discussing this at length, because what I was doing is I was posting revenue figures from the first 24-hour launch of my kind of video course. And I was really in two minds about this, because on the one hand, I'm keen on transparency. And I think sharing revenue numbers when accompanied by, this is how much I made in 24 hours and this is how I did it, and kind of explaining the story behind it, I think that is very inspiring to the right sort of people. I think that is one side of it. But the other side of it is that if you keep on doing it without the kind of educational component, at that point, you're the dude posing in front of a Lamborghini. So it's something I think about a lot. I often think back to how I felt when I first saw people share revenue numbers publicly. And these were people like Graham Stephan on his YouTube channel, Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income does this a lot. There's a website that you might be familiar with called Indie Hackers, and they've got a podcast and they do lots of interviews where people are sharing the actual revenue numbers and saying, hey, so I'm 21, I'm a student from this university, and I built this site that does this totally random niche thing, and it's making $3,257 a month. And that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. You can actually do this stuff for real. And so I remember the feeling I had when seeing those. It was never once a feeling of, oh my God, why is this guy sharing his revenue numbers? It was a sense of, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's, has got the transparency and the honesty and the genuineness to share the revenue numbers and say exactly how he got there. So that is sort of the vibe I try and do when it comes to my stuff. But it is a real struggle. I think another thing that I like, so I don't know if you saw Nat Eliason's post recently about how to build a blog that changes your life. He shared some revenue numbers on that, where he talked about how his Rome course made $300,000 in like a 6-month period or something stupid like that. And the way he was sharing the numbers was very, he clearly thought about this. It was very matter of fact and also very self-aware. Like after sharing that number, he was like, he said, I know it's fucking ridiculous. And it's just kind of the thought that everyone would have, seeing that how the hell did you make so much money in such a short space of time? But this whole like 3,000 word blog post was like an in-depth look at the 7-8 years of effort that it took to get to that point of becoming an overnight success. So it's all these kind of things that I think about when I become okay with sharing revenue numbers. And honestly, I think for you, like, you have put in the work and you're a genuine enough guy that I don't think anyone will watch your video or see your thing and think that you're fronting by hiring a private jet. It'll be oh my gosh, wow, Cam, this is amazing. I'm really happy for you. And I'm really glad that you're telling me exactly how you got there. And I realize how much hard work it's taken. And this inspires me to take my own first steps along that journey.
I hope so. The way I'll do it is the way I handle everything, which is I'll just run some experiments. My take is, as long as you don't die, it's worth testing and messing with. But I just was raised in a way that bragging is like not okay. And I don't know, like as an educator, I give talks and stuff. And like, there's this one dude who came up to me and the first thing he said to me was, hey, Cam, thanks for the talk. I get invited to international talks all the time. And he just said it in such a way of a guy who, like, I was like, this guy has never been invited to give a talk anywhere. And there's just this like internet huckstery, like, I don't know, that kind of inauthenticity drives me nuts. And I don't know, I think it's also something we're figuring out, right? How we navigate life. But there's just so many people who are so full of it. And you have to be worried about, there's some people on the internet that are so good at selling what they do, but not actually doing it, that a lot of them get a lot more noise. But I don't know. The thing that like I love is I just like seeing people do cool stuff. And I guess that's a good like North Star, is if you can share things that help people further along on their journey, it's cool. Because I don't know, like it's just cool to be, and when someone says that something you did inspired them, that just like makes your day, and it never gets old, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm all for kind of transparency and authenticity and all this stuff. I think the money thing is like a very specific, weird, like societal domain, because, for example, if you saw like a YouTube video from someone explaining, hey guys, my YouTube channel just hit 1 million subscribers and here are kind of 10 lessons I learned along the way, you wouldn't think anything of it. You'd think, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. But if someone said, hey guys, I made $1 million in revenue this year and here are 10 lessons I've learned from it, you'd think, oh, that sounds a bit weird. I think it's just that realm of money where...
Hey, Ali, can I interrupt real quick? I want to throw some shade at the chat. I think we need to do something to get people feeling it. So, all right, gang. I'm specifically directing this to Parvez, who's saying it's a waste of time. Parvez, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something... I think you guys know what a chat storm is, but I want to get a little interactive. So what we're going to do is, right now we're all disconnected in space. We're all over the country, but I want to know where everybody is. But instead of just saying, hey, where are you in the chat, because that's lame, what we're going to do on the count of 3 is we're all going to enter where we're from, just a quick glance of it. And then I don't have to deal with you jokers complaining about, hey, they're just talking to each other, okay? So if you would type in the chat, but don't hit enter just yet. We're all going to hit enter at the count of 3, where you type in the city or the region or the name of where you're from, okay? So if y'all are good, type that in, and then we'll go 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, so let's see. There's about a 30-second delay on the chat, so.
All right, I wanted to make sure we're being like engaging and giving enough to these fine people who are listening.
Yeah, I don't know. I always feel a bit weird about the live chat format, because I don't do a lot of like when I'm having these conversations, I don't do a lot of in like active interaction with the chat. It's mostly focused on this conversation, and it's like, well, people can sit in if they want, and Angus, who's also on the call, collates the relevant questions and kind of feeds them to us every now and then.
Oh, I get that.
But
Okay,
then,
sorry, I didn't mean to be really then. I just like I like a
oh
lot
no,
of
of course, no,
interaction.
absolutely. It's good that we're being engaging for the chat, but it always feels a bit weird because there are people in the chat who, I don't know, for example, one of these people are like, hey, please pronounce my name and give me a shout out. Like, obviously, that is not going to happen in the middle of a conversation where we're talking about entrepreneurship and video.
Yeah.
And, at the same time,
Well, I
thank you
think
for
they're
supporting the
actually
channel, but also don't be a dick on the chat. So,
yeah, well, I think
yeah.
there's a lesson we can take from that, y'all, which is like, hey, when you ask your name to get said, that's benefiting you. And the reason Ali is a big deal is that he builds things that help lots of people. He's building things that scale. And this is why startups are powerful, right? If you start a startup, it's not just helping a couple people. It's not a laundromat. No shade on anyone who runs a laundromat. But if you're a startup, you're using technology that is scaling to solve a problem for lots of people. And so if we interrupt the chat and say hello to you, we're helping you. Whereas when we can chat in a way that provides value and knowledge and insights for you to go figure out for more than one person, we're doing, because that's what Ali and I care about, right? The two of us care about sharing knowledge that's going to help all of you, not just one of you, right? So thank you.
That is a good way of doing it. And yeah, the vast majority of people in the chat are nice. But yeah, it's just that thing that always kind of like people being like, oh, I'm bored, you're not interacting with the chat. Be like, okay, fine, just leave then. I really don't care about you.
Yeah, anyways, sorry for interrupting you. I get excited and I'm
No,
just
of
like,
course. This is
I
good
really
stuff.
admire you. So I'm just like, I enjoy kind of doing part of this and I like seeing your audience.
No, man, this
So
is good
yeah.
stuff. There's a few other things I had on my list. What's a personal board of directors?
Oh, thank you. Okay. Here's the deal, y'all. My first startup failed. Second startup failed. Third startup, one of the reasons that it worked was I had a board of directors, right? This company got enough success. Here's what a board of directors is. If you're the CEO of a company, there's this group of people who will help you solve the company's problems. And so quarterly, I meet with them and I'd say, hey, we're having trouble getting customers or market sizing, or this group we want to partner with, or there's a competitor who's being shady, Like really, it helped a lot, right? And so I was like, you know what? I want this for me. Like, why does this only go to? Why should CEOs be the only people who get this? Everyone should have this. So I pitched my friends this. I'm an entrepreneur and I have a lot of weird ideas. So I told my friends, guys, I want us to try this thing where instead of a board of directors for a company, we're the board of directors for each other, right? And they were like, yeah, Cam, this is kind of weird, but whatever. Yeah. And we tried it. And we were like, these are some friends who all over the different parts of the United States. So none of us lived in the same spot. And we would get together and we did what friends did, every year. We get together and drink too much, which is what dumb young dudes do. And we were no different. But we tried this thing where we just say, okay, well, we did this personal board of directors where people would say whatever they were dealing with. Maybe it's my boss sucks. Maybe it's my company's going slowly. Maybe it's I'm having some trouble in my personal relationships, or I'm trying to get a girlfriend or whatever. And this framework, it made it really easy to ask for help. My whole thing is I'm really self-sufficient and believe in I shouldn't have to ask anybody for help, and I'm super independent, which is there's positives to that, but there's also a lot of downsides to that. You need to learn how to ask for help. And I always struggle with that. And so this first meeting we did, we called it the Bourbon Boardroom. And my theory was that if we drape it in the language of alcohol and business, men will talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
And they did. It worked. And so I actually did a write-up on this that I have on my website. I'll drop that in the chat for y'all who want to see it. But it's just how to do it. But long story short, what you do is you take a weekend, get together with some friends, and give each person gets 30 minutes, right? And this idea has scaled well beyond me at this point. Now it's happened with about 50 different groups of people. And let me drop this link, board of directors, in the chat. So what it is you just take a weekend with your friends and hang out and have fun, be with your friends. But dedicate some very specific time. So each person gets half an hour, right? And the first half an hour, you can talk about whatever you want. What we recommend is about 10 minutes of kind of unpacking whatever the problem is. And it's okay if you say, I don't have any problems, or I don't even know what my problems are. And the rest of the time, get input and brain power from other people. Because other people just have perspectives that are useful, and these are your friends, so you should be able to be vulnerable about with them. And with us, it took a time to get there, right? Like we didn't start out with like it was instantly everyone bearing their souls and sharing like the stuff they were really scared of. It took some time, but we've now done this 8 years in a row, and now I do this with like 3 or 4 different sets of friends. Another thing that's really powerful about it is like, yeah, you have this one special weekend a year where you get together with your friends, but our like group chat is really now hardwired for being helpful. So it's not weird for us to be like, dudes, I am about to go into a job interview. Can someone give me a story to tell about this so that I can, do well in this job interview? Or guys, I'm kind of nervous about this thing. Just having like, we all have our friends, but sometimes your friends are just more casual, right? And having them really wired for like helping you out and having your back is just a really, really powerful thing. So I dropped that link in the chat, but it's become this weird, like, I don't know, it's made us closer as friends, but it's also helped all of our careers because now you have this brain trust, right? It's just, I love this kind of stuff, and I run this stuff all the time, and that's like what I try to build in my courses too.
Oh, that's really cool. So I first read about similar concepts when I was reading about like mastermind and like mastermind retreats and this sort of stuff. And I tried this, like it was me and a group of my guy friends, there were like 5 of us, and we were having brunch in some Indian restaurant one day. And I said, all right, guys, I have a proposal. And I kind of proposed this kind of model where I'd be like, okay, I think what we should do is, there's 5 of us, we should each spend 15 minutes where we spend like half of it talking about, we're kind of giving people a life update and saying what our struggles are right now. And then the rest of the time, the other people can ask questions and give advice. And everyone was like, oh, all right, let's see what happens. But then sort of kind of just playing along with it. But then everyone got really into it, and it was like the best thing ever. And now this is like a format that I'm trying to replicate more in more of my kind of social situations, because it's just so valuable, and it gives people explicit permission to be vulnerable and to talk about their feelings, which, as you said, is not like a normal thing to do.
Yeah, and it's like this weird secret advantage you have to the other thing. Another thing I've found, by the way, that helps with this is that the first time you intro to a group of people think it's weird, and so it's nice to curate it so that the first person is someone that is going to do a good job of kind of setting the table. Because if someone does it with some kind of fear, or sometimes people do it in kind of braggadocious way, like if you pick the first person carefully, or you do it first just to set the frame, hey, it's okay to act like you don't have all the answers here. That is what gives everyone else permission to like, okay, cool, now I get what this is about. But it's just, man, it is a special thing, and really changed the nature of a lot of my friendships, which, I don't know, I'm all for like, I want to make my dent in the universe, I want to make good life, I want to keep being successful, all these things. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of what makes life real is the relationships we have. And this is a good way to build spark to make your relationships that you do have that much deeper and richer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, how do you think about, it's kind of a big question, but how do you think about what you want from life in general? Do you have like a model for this at all?
Yo, Ali's like, hey, so do you like tacos or burritos more? Like, I feel like you just like very casually gave me this like very existential question. All right, so I'm sorry, was the question like, how do you know what I want out of life?
Yeah, so do you have any ways that you think about to help you figure out, okay, where am I going in the next sort of like 5 years, 10 years, like 20 years? Like, do you have like a way of thinking about this?
Okay. So I'm kind of weird in that if I cross the street today and I get hit by a bus and I died, I'd be okay. I was proud of the life I lived and the relationships I had. I'm not gonna lie, having one big success under my belt was a really big deal, and having like found like my partner in life, like the woman who I'm gonna like spend my life with, those were 2 like really big deals. And if I hadn't accomplished either one of those and the bus hit me, I'd be pretty pissed.
Okay.
But I'm not here to live. I'm not here for like, I don't know, I want to make a dent in the universe. I want to have a life well lived. Those are kind of my kind of stars that I'm kind of guiding towards. Okay. But I meet people who are very certain about their lives. I meet a lot of doctors actually who, they're very, when they're young, they know that being a doctor is the path. And a lot of them get there and they realize it's not for them, which I wouldn't be surprised if this was part of your path too, right? And I won't bore you with how many examples there are of this, but a lot of times you learn that the pursuit of something is more fun and more enjoyable than getting the thing itself. Buddhism talks about this a lot. Stoicism has like kind of some parallels with this, but I like the pursuit. And while I was really proud of those two big accomplishments I just mentioned, I am at the point now where I like the chase, and I get far more excited about pursuing things. And I do what I love, right? I've been an entrepreneur. I've had jobs that I hated. I've had jobs that I did like, but I was lucky enough to find out what I wanted to do when I grew up, which, by the way, happened when I was 33 years old. So for those of you who are like, I need to have life figured out, like, no, nobody has it figured out. And I've already talked to you about how companies that look so great and amazing, peel back the curtains, it's a mess. So for me, those are kind of the two things I care about the most. I want to help people. When I say make a dent in the universe, I mean help people. I mean, and I think I have. I've been more successful than I ever thought I could be, but I'm glad about that. I'm trying to 10x that. I'm trying to that is what inspires me and gets me out of bed in the morning. So I don't know. That's kind of a rambling answer. I've also I'm old, so I've lived long enough to have wins and losses. And once you have wins and losses under your belt, you chill out about a lot of stuff. What I sense from the chat and what a lot of your audience, Ali, is that they are motivated, they have desires, and they haven't been slapped around by life that much. I mean, some of them have, but their problems are more uncertainty and fear and the vagaries of life than it is, I am stuck in a situation I can't get out of. And so when that's the case, you need to go get your mistakes, because there is something about being able to walk into a room having taken your licks and had your losses, that when you recover from them, which you always will, means that you just have this confidence about you that no one else can have. The other thing that I think about a lot is when I was a kid, I used to have existential despair. It was hard for me to go to sleep at night because I would imagine I'm going to die. I was aware of my mortality. And I was like, how do I imagine what it's like to be alive if I'm dead? Like a piece of rock can't think. And so I wanted certainty, like we all do. And the one thing that I think in humankind that we've ever found out that is true all the time is this story. I'm not sure where it's from, but it's this king asks his wise man, hey, what is always true? What can I always depend on? What will always be the case? And the wise man says, this too shall pass. And what that means is that when things are amazing, appreciate them because they're going to start sucking. And when things are awful, they're not going to stay that way. They're going to get better. And so that's another thing where no matter how good or bad things are, that phrase is very, very useful. So that motivates me to keep going also.
Okay. So we've got an interesting question from Super Anus in the chat who says, okay, Cam, what would you do differently if you had the chance to reverse time? So.
Nothing. And first of all, that's a great name and a great question. I would reverse nothing because it's like the vampire problem, right? The reason that vampires are screwed is they are immortal. They live forever. And when that is the case, you have all the time in the world to get around to everything. There's this business term called Parkinson's law. And what it says is that work expands to fill the time available to it. And so if you have to write a paper in 2 hours, you'll do it in 2 hours. If you only have an hour to write it, you'll get it done in an hour. One of the exercises I do around teaching people video is in an hour-long workshop, I make them film, upload, and get feedback on 2 videos live. This is a terrifying process, but people love it. And they realize a lot of the barriers I had are imposed. So vampires don't live meaningful lives because they live forever. And if I had the chance to reverse time, I would have this sense of, I'll get around to doing it later. I'm not saying I live every day like it's my last, but knowing that my life has some finality to it means that I have to make the most of it. So I would, again, worry less about strategy and more about action. One of my favorite entrepreneurs is this guy named Herb Kelleher. And he founded an airline company called Southwest Airlines. And he has this quote called, "We have a strategic plan. It's called doing things." And so, again, that kind of notion of action where you can get feedback and learning from it is really powerful. He's also famous for the same school I teach at, where he would roll up smoking a cigar and drinking bourbon while he was teaching class. And if you're an entrepreneur worth $1 billion, you can do that. I am not worth that much yet, but that is my goal in life, to be able to do that.
Nice. The bourbon and the cigar.
Yeah.
That's when you're a real badass.
Yeah.
And kind of on that note, how do you think about money these days? Like you have your big success under your belt. How do you, like, I don't know whether that has gotten you to the level of FU money, but like how do you think about this idea of what is enough, but also, this desire that we all as entrepreneurs have that I want to make more.
Yeah. I have like nowhere, I do not have the FU money and like don't ever want to portray that I'm even in that ballpark for sure. My takes on money are, I have freedom. Money is a proxy for freedom, right? What that means is that I have enough money that I don't have to think about it. And to be fair, I do think about it. Money is how entrepreneurs keep score. It's how business people keep score. And that if we didn't count money, if we counted calorie shells, well, then that's what we'd be keeping track of, right? The point is that, the Dutch tulip mania, like tulips were worth a lot of money. The point is that I want to have money to be able to do what I want to do. And that I do have. So like by that standard, I think I'm incredibly wealthy. But I also like had to grind on that, right? This is not my first work. I've like grinded. I've like did customer service forever, which was like incredibly educational to work at a customer service desk and answer emails because I learned how to deal with angry people, which is like a superpower, right? So my thinking on money is have enough to be able to make the choices you want, maximize your surface area of opportunity. And what that means is, upside's high, downside's low. And what's so interesting about that is a lot of like the entrepreneurial downsides, they're intangible. They're things like your reputation, or maybe the girl you want to date, she's dating the guy who works for the hotshot consulting firm, but not you because you're just an entrepreneur on your couch, right? But all that stuff can change. Whereas at a job, you can only make so much money. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you have upside to that. I love deals that are, rev share type deals, right? Where I live my life and live modestly, right? I don't have a big place. I drive a piece of crap car, which is like an awesome life strategy because, the whole thing about cars, I know this because Ali also has an awesome car, but I guess I am throwing shade at you, Ali. I think you should drive a junker. And that the crappier car you drive, it also gives me like I have no anxiety. When I pull into a parking spot that's too small, and I live in Texas, so everyone has a big FU truck. And if someone's like truck like opens into my car, I don't care because it just doesn't matter to me. What it means is that not spending any money on that means I can take deals where maybe the upfront cash is not that much, but the revenue share potential of it is high. It means that I can work with people who like I really want to work with but can't afford me, right? The digital divide is a real thing, and like technology is, and the internet is a massive equalizer. Yet still, there's like all these cultures where, because of like government structures and social structures, like even though the software is all the same, they don't have access to the same opportunity. So I love doing work in countries like that can help give them access to this stuff. And I don't know. I'm really into underdogs, and that's always been a part of my kind of thinking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is something I think about a lot as well. Like, it's like money is in a way of keeping score, and it becomes kind of part of the game. But also, it's like, well, when you're at the point where you've got kind of the freedom to do what you want and work with the people that you want, then yeah, I often wonder to what extent, because I still like chasing the numbers, but I think at least maybe, or maybe this is just like a story I tell myself, but the way I think about it is that it is kind of like a video game almost, in that money to me is like a proxy for how much value you're adding in a way, because people give you money if you're giving value to them. And so as the numbers get bigger, it's like, okay, cool, this is fun. And there's this whole thing that, the anti-hustle people say that you shouldn't monetize your hobbies because it's okay to have hobbies without monetizing them. But I sometimes push back on that. I think, like, for me, the sort of adding a layer of monetization to the stuff that I'm doing anyway just makes all of it more fun, because it just adds an extra level of adventure and challenge and scorekeeping to it. I don't know if you think about it in those terms at all.
Yeah, two things. One is that a scoreboard's great. A scoreboard gives you order, and it allows you to know if you're making progress or not. And I don't think it's a stretch at all to say it's a kind of measures value. I think it 100% measures value, and it measures it in so much better than other ways, right? I'm with you on the anti-hustle people because they kind of freak me out, or the hustle people freak me out. So I'm with that. I think one way to think about this is when you're in a good relationship, by relationship, I mean like a life partner, what's challenging about it is they are going to change and you are going to change. And what you hope is that when both of you change, you still like the new version of you. Our relationship to money is similar, and that our relationship to money is going to change. And so that's why, like, you need to be thinking about compounding and all these things. But your views on money now are going to be different than they are in 3 or 4 years. You can't step in the same stream twice. So you want to think about what model can you build that is going to still work even when that changes. And for example, you and I are probably like, time is probably almost as valuable as money to us right now. And that was probably not the case a long time ago. And in 10 years from now, it's probably going to be skewed even more in the favor of time, maybe because we'll be aware of our mortality, who knows. But all I know for sure is that my relationship to money will change. I was kind of fortunate in that my parents talked about it as kids. We also had some money troubles. We had my dad was an entrepreneur, so our family income was like this, and that kind of got me used to that. To like, my mom drove the same car for 16 years, which clearly reflected on me to do that. But the thing I ask is less about how do you get the right mindset about money now. It's more just don't get the wrong mindset. I'm really into this kind of concept of negative knowledge. Like, I think a lot of just, you don't need to do the right thing. Just don't do the dumb thing. Because if you do the dumb thing, you get out of the game. Whereas as long as you can still play, you have upside. And the second thing is note that your model is going to change. Those two things, right?
Nice. Yeah, this is very much something that Morgan Housel talks about in his book, The Psychology of Money, which I read recently and really enjoyed. This idea that, when it comes to money and when it comes to career and when it comes to anything really, we, obviously we can all kind of do what we want. And so we could go from one extreme to the other. We could say, you know what, money matters like not at all to me. I'm going to spend 100% of my time with my family. Or you can go the other way and think, you know what, I'm going to spend all of my time at my investment banking job. Screw relationships, I can sort that out later on. And his point is that in most of these things, if you're at either end of the extreme, your chances of regretting it later are a lot higher. Whereas if you have a moderate middle ground where you're like, yeah, money's important, it's important to make some of it, but also balanced life, our family life, relationships, all that kind of stuff, you are unlikely to regret that particular course of action further down the line, given that you know that your preferences will change. So that's something that I think about a lot as well. I think that I think that's one thing that the parable of the Mexican fisherman gets wrong, which is, that you could just kind of coast by and just make enough money to support your basic needs right now and spend the rest of the time having fun with your family and playing the guitar. But that doesn't account for the fact that 10 years from now, A, your preferences might change, B, someone in your family might get like a really bad health condition that if you're not in the UK, you have to pay a lot of money for. See, like all sorts of things could happen. And building up a buffer of money in the short term is a hedge against future uncertainty and future black swan events.
100%. And there's so much going on there that I think you hit on. So the reason I got into video was I got a chronic illness that I was a musician, moved to Austin playing bands, and I was feeling this pain in my left arm, and then I started getting pain typing. And so those two things caused me pain. And then I started, lifting because I could do macro muscle movements, and I had to stop doing that too. The one thing I could do is I can sit in front of a camera and talk. And my videos have very light editing because as much as I love editing and think it's fun, it's like hard to do. So for me, like, it's just funny that I make money teaching video when I was like, for a while, how am I going to make money if I can't use a computer easily? Because I think that a computer is the number one instrument for wealth creation, right? And what I also think that you're hitting on, and this theme has shown up, you and I have both said how different people have suggested different things. And what works for someone else doesn't work for you. And like, one thing that bugs me is that I haven't, Morgan Housel is someone who, every time I've read him, it's been amazing. But the amount of times, and you mentioned him, so I'm thinking Morgan Housel. But other people who I respect and like recommend an author, and it doesn't work for me at all. And so we have to find what works for us, right? And our strengths and abilities are different per person. And books, I don't think they're just built too big. Books make money for the author, but they're not customized for the learner. And that's why I think we have to go, again, biased towards action and trying things. But the parable of the Mexican fisherman, I think that one is so ripe for some corollary that someone says, like, get another boat or something, right? Yeah. Like, I haven't figured it out yet, but I think there's a good opportunity to show some other way of seeing this.
Nice. So 2 other big things I wanted to talk to you about. Firstly, on the music front, what's your music background?
Well, I just I had dreams of being a rock star, right? And I was much better at technology startups than I was guitar and singing. So I've always made music, and I got, if you dig around, I have like band stuff everywhere. I played in bands back home where I'm from in North Carolina, and they always sucked. And then I stopped singing and played guitar in a band, and this band did really, really well. But that's when the kind of fibromyalgia, the chronic illness kicked in. That's when I had to stop. Then I made electronic music for a while. And one of the things I found is that when you make videos and if you record a Zoom session and you have welcome music and you upload it to YouTube and it's copyrighted video, you get strikes against your channel. So all this electronic music that I made, now I use for a lot of my own videos because it doesn't have any royalties. Nice. I have to pay for, right? But I love music, but I will say that as an obsessive of music, I used to be the guy who, and if there's any young people in the audience who feel this way, please hear me out on this. Don't be the guy who thinks you're cool because you hear about music and artists before other people. No one likes that person. And the cultural value, the value to your friendships and careers of being the person who knows about bands before anyone else, and that gave me nothing in life. I wish I had done, I love music, but I wish I'd done a lot of other stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, so music is one of those fields where I've sort of been dabbling in, I started singing when I was in school in the school choir, and then just used to really enjoy singing in the shower and in class and stuff, just randomly. And I only really started taking music semi-seriously halfway through university, when in my third year I happened to have a piano in my room. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna learn the piano, and it just was really cool because it's I was on that steep bit of the learning curve where every day I was learning new stuff, and it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And also because it's so based on mathematical formulae, and so I'd pick up a few chords, arpeggiate them a little bit, and people will come to my room and say, "Oh my God, it looks like you've been playing the piano for years." And I'll be like, "I've been playing the piano for 2 weeks. I'm just following a mathematical formula." So now I'm trying to get to the point where I've got an item on my bucket list that I want to write my own album of original songs.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning a lot about music theory and things. But actually, I think I'm making a mistake here, because the way to write an album of songs is to try and do it, rather than think I have to learn the music theory first. What do you reckon?
Ali, you are 100% right. You need to release some bad music, and you need to share it with your friends. And here's actually what I recommend, is that feedback, I think, is really important to everything, especially videos. But the thing about your music is when you play it for friends, they know you and they like you. And they're going to either give you the compliment sandwich, where they say a good thing, a bad thing, and then a good thing. What I do is, as I said, my third company, I was the CEO. And what I would do is I would sneak my music in. So in the office, when we were all listening to it, in between, on Spotify or something, I would switch over to my music and I'd play it, and I wouldn't tell them who it was. But you best believe that I was looking over my shoulder, trying to see if anyone was nodding my head. Yeah. And when that song was done, it would go to, I would fade it back into some big time artist, right? And if they ever asked me, hey, who was that? I was just on cloud 9, right? And the thing, if they'd asked me, I'd say, oh, it's just this French producer or something. I would just make something up. But the point is that when you do that, you get honest feedback. And that is what helps you get better as a musician. Feedback is such a powerful thing. So yeah, what I would suggest, Ali, is, Kanye used an iPhone on his most recent record. So I would just record an album and write your originals. And, first of all, I'm jealous of you, because that part of the learning curve is such an amazing one. Making your first album is this thing you're going to wish you have. I talk to entrepreneurs who are, multi-millionaires, and they still miss being in college eating ramen in their dorm, because that was the really, things change. And now that they're so rich, people look at them funny, and every time someone's really friendly to them, they think they're asking for money or something. So I'm just this moment of being a musician where no one knows what you're doing, and there's nothing stopping you, and the tools are there, and you're technical enough to get those tools. Man, just write the album. And the other kind of thing, have you written songs before?
No, never.
Okay. Let me tell you, and this directly applies to videos too, is write entire complete songs. What's going to happen is you'll get an inspiration, arpeggio or something, and it'll hook you. And you'll write this intro, and you'll love it. And then you'll write the first verse and you'll love it. And then the second verse will suck.
Yeah.
And then like a week later, you'll get a different inspiration and you'll write something else. And this time you'll just get the intro done. And then a week after that, you'll write another thing and you'll get, maybe you'll get to the almost the end. But the point is that after a month, you have 3 half-written songs. And these suck. These don't count. What you'd rather have is 1 completely written song. So go all the way through it. Write the whole thing. Make the whole crappy song.
Yeah.
And then it's much easier to improve. And it's easier to get in that spot of like, might not get that same inspiration or motivation to finish it. Another thing I'd recommend is if you can get some partners, like someone to play, bandmates, it's the same way that like any creative project goes better because some days you're just not feeling it, and having someone else. So like find another musician who will help you out. And if you need remixes, I can help you. But not that I want to go deep on this, but like who's influenced you and like what kind of stuff do you write?
I feel like it's very kind of mainstream pop, so like Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, Shawn Mendes, Charlie Puth. But I also really like musicals, Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, and Disney songs. Those are like the 3 genres, like mainstream pop, Disney, and musicals. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, interestingly, you probably know like JoJo, or not JoJo, like who's that, Frank, what's his name? The guy who like used to be crazy YouTube guy who's now like a certified music star. Like there's, I'm just saying it's been done. Well, he's like Joji is the guy, he's the artist now. And he's like a super big artist, but he was a crazy YouTube guy. He was the guy on Harlem Shake back when that video, and he did like viral videos. And the thing that he says, people asked him, hey man, why don't you make YouTube videos anymore? And like, what stopped you? Why weren't you a musician from jump? And he said, I was scared. I wanted to be a musician all along, but sharing original creative work with the world was much scarier to him than prank videos where he was being just a wild, crazy guy. So I don't know. You'll see that this really beautiful, elegant thing of songwriting will make you see the world through a lens that will inform your videos and vice versa. And because they're so different, right? They're different audiences, different concepts, different mediums, and the richness that they can pull will make you unique and different. Because I'm kind of sick of watching videos where someone just like summarizes a blog post or a book or something. Whereas when you do that kind of stuff, you'll get a new creative lens on it that maybe you weren't suspecting. But the first time someone gives you, like, people tell you your videos are great all the time. The first time someone says they like your song, you're gonna just melt. It's a joyous thing.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's the scary part. And so one thing that I was listening to interviews with John Mayer, because he sometimes does like Instagram lives where he just kind of gives a guitar lesson. And he was saying a lot of music is about, like, a lot of lyric writing is about expressing an emotion. And I thought it was interesting because I feel like my own emotions are fairly muted in that because I think maybe I've drunk the Stoicism Kool-Aid so much that I'm just generally very tranquil, and I feel like I rarely experience like high positive or high negative emotions, and it's just sort of baseliney. And so I kind of had this idea for like an album, which is that where I take like an emotion or a feeling and try and explain it the way that I'm feeling it. And so I had this idea for a song, which is something like which would be called something like "I Miss You," and it's this idea where people ask me that, hey, do you miss university, or do you miss your friends, or do you miss your mom? And like what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to miss someone? Like, is it wishing that they were here and they're not? But that's stupid because obviously they're not here, and that's just weird. And sort of trying to put that into lyrics or words to that effect.
Wow. Okay. This is weird because when I was a kid, I never missed anyone. And when I started reading Stoicism like forever ago, it resonated with me so easily because I was like, yes, this is natural.
Exactly.
And what I've since learned is that missing someone means you just think of them every once in a while. And that you hear a song that's like, oh, honey, I love you so much. And, there's this like, oh my God, there's this emptiness in my heart. Just thinking about someone is enough for that.
Okay.
But I would, to me, this sounds like all the more reason why you should be swimming in waters a little more a little more emotional and subconscious. Like another thing I'd recommend about songwriting is I have beef with people who write lyrics first because they always sound the same. And so, there's the fancy musical term for this is not ululation, or there's some term for where you just start singing nonsense, right? So play a chord progression and sing nonsense, sing a melody, right? And then later map back, like when you hear, you'll hear words that'll just come to you, if you're just humming or making up nonsense words. And a lot of songwriters do this as a technique, but what I like about it is it makes me feel like I'm getting closer to that kind of more elemental emotional space. Because like you, I don't live there, right? And it's been this huge like work advantage to be cool in the cut and not get stressed out and all that. But again, I'm trying to live a rich life, right? I don't want my baseline to be, I want ups and downs, right? And if I die and I haven't had enough ups and downs, not living life properly. And you will too, dude. So you need to be like, you need to have those ups and downs. But I would try that and see how it goes. And also, I don't know, it's also definitely not one size fits all. So you have to experiment. And what I just tried, that's what works for me, singing nonsense and then eventually writing stuff over it. But I don't know if you know the Icelandic band Sigur Rós. They're just this really gorgeous musician band. And they sing in Hopelandic, a made-up language. And the reason they do this made-up language is that it's just pure to channeling, the universe to them, right? And that what happens is because it's a made-up language, the listeners superimpose their own thoughts on it. And so it's more of a blank canvas. Whereas when someone, like, I don't really relate to song when someone describes this perfect emotional picture of something I don't relate to, right? And so I think there's something powerful in writing music that is blank slate and relatable enough that anyone can find something to grab from it.
Okay, interesting. And is the general vibe of this that you sort of pick a chord progression, then figure out a melody, and then figure out lyrics? Is that like a standard way of going about it?
Yeah, that's what works for me. Once you get good enough at it, you can start doing different approaches, and you have to write things in a more mechanical way. But again, you're in the fun part where you don't know what you don't know. It's something called the orientation problem that I think applies to entrepreneurship and video, which is like a lot of people making videos, the mistake they make is they buy a nice camera and they think that a nice camera is what's slowing them down. And really it's being comfortable on camera and learning how to speak confidently. So with music, people will buy Ableton, which the software debate is like this whole other thing, right? You need to make crappy stuff on GarageBand, or at least that's what I'd recommend. And but for me personally, it's when does something grab me? And grab me means when I was a kid, I used to get goosebumps. And it was this like magical somatic neurochemical reaction of like my hair would rise up on my arm. And that let me know that something was really powerful to me. And I would get it from like Guns N' Roses to like Madonna to like stuff I just had no idea. And as an old person, I don't get that much anymore. But I still get something that just like trips like it wires my brain in that way that hits it. And then I would try to capture it. So your voice recorder and you capture it. And then, keep going up. But my whole thing is I try to finish the song in one sitting. And that a crappy song done in one sitting is at least done versus for years I was stuck with first and second verses are great, but they're only halfway done. And you can't do anything with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I had in my head this romantic notion of like, hey, I'm going to take the Eurostar to Paris and get an Airbnb for like 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, I need to have 7 songs done or something like that.
Oh, okay. So dude, there's just like writing, there's this vibe around this. Do you know Bon Iver? Global. Okay. So Bon Iver is this amazing musician. And at some point I have this interesting story about I tried out for The Voice once, which is this whole other thing. But the point is that Bon Iver, that first album, For Emma Forever, is this beautiful, gorgeous record. And the story behind it was man gets devastated by breakup with his girlfriend, goes into a cabin in the rural United States, and emerges months later with this incredible record. And of course, like that's so good, right? That's like such a cool artistic story about how he produced this beautiful work of love and longing. I met this dude who grew up in the same town as Bon Iver, and they weren't like super close buddies. They were like acquaintances. And he said that story went nothing like that. He was in a cabin writing music, but his friends would visit him and they would just hang out and party all the time. But guess what? That story sucks. Nobody cares about that story. So getting on the Eurostar and writing, I love it. But what's so often is sometimes the inspiration hits when you're in between takes and you're trying to make this video about something, about whatever, about how to get a better career or something, and then something grabs you. That's when it comes sometimes, as opposed to in the golden hour in the south of France, looking over the beach, right? Like this is, you can't predict it. And my whole thing is you got to grab it. And what I feel is, if I have a song that I love and that I've written and I love it, but I haven't recorded, I feel anxiety. That's the other thing is, I told you, if I get hit by a bus and I die, I'm okay. All the songs that I care about the most, I've recorded. And if I hadn't, then I would feel some like frustration and anxiety about them. You know?
So on the music front, another sort of thing I've been thinking about a lot is I think I was talking to Kay He. I don't know if you know him, a Rad Reads guy. He's into the whole like psych and brainy type stuff as well. But he has we've done a few chats on these deep dives in the past, and what he was saying is that he sort of asked me to imagine this future where I have got all of my money issues sorted, therefore there's no sort of incentive to work anymore, and ask how would you spend your time? I was like, I'd like to do some music, I'd like to learn how to paint, and I really like the concept art that these like artists make for video games and movies, and that seems really cool. And I love the idea because I read a lot of fantasy books, like illustrating scenes from fantasy books. That seems like the dream. And I was sort of imagining this future where I don't care about money. And one thing that he got me thinking is that, well, why don't I just do it now? Like right now I'm kind of thinking, oh, well, I've got this course coming up and it's a big deal and there's lots of people and I need to spend all my time doing it. Or, there's always another video I could be making for the channel. And even though I say that I want to learn this music thing, or I say I want to learn how to paint and do concept art, I haven't taken a single step towards in that direction because, I've been so busy with these other things that really just involve making some more money. And that just seems a bit stupid. So I don't know. Have you got any tips on that front? Like how, this is what I'm trying to figure out. Like how do I live a balanced life with the stuff that is important but not urgent to me, while still recognizing that, but there's all this stuff I could be doing for the business instead.
Okay, I have like serious beef with people who, when someone asks a question like you just asked, they respond in this authoritative, confident way of like, oh, I just need to do this. Here's a book. Like you should have, it's as easy. And like, they're full of it. Like it's different for everyone. I'll start with something harsh and then I'll soften up a little bit. The harsh answer is what Mark Zuckerberg says to the Winklevoss twins in the movie The Social Network, when they're like, he stole our idea. And then Mark Zuckerberg goes, if you would have invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. And his point is like, listen, you can talk about it or you can do it, right? And that's why I keep talking about do things poorly, because even if we rarely do things perfectly, and so so the next logical step there is we got to do it. There's another question is maybe you don't really want that. Maybe the idea of that is romantic to you, and you and I know this as writers, right? The writing it sounds so great. You make your French press coffee, you sit down, and you think deep thoughts about the nature of life and existence and philosophy. And like really a lot of times writing is like, oh God, this is painful, and like I'm just making it through this. But I would, the thing that's, I think it goes back to our conversation about money, is if you want to become a pilot or you want to become a sculptor, you need to like own a plane or rent a plane, and you need to buy marble. Those things are expensive. But doing what you just described doesn't cost any money. And so, I would start it. And the other thing is I talked about how sometimes I would go out of myself and try on a new identity, like a new pair of pants when I was in foreign countries or something, because I was worried about people who knew me seeing me that way. I actually like starting new creative projects in the middle of the big things, because the big things I already know I'm good at, and it helps manage my confidence and feel okay. So that if I try something else that's new and scary and different and creative, right, then if I suck at that, I still can psychologically lean back on the thing that I know that I'm good at. The thing that's tough about creative work, and I wouldn't be surprised, Ali, if this is going on with you, your videos, those are you. But when you make this first record, that's you. That is, and if someone criticizes your video, they can criticize the lighting, and you're like, oh, whatever, that was just the lighting. Or like, maybe I could have made it a point. Whereas when they say, hey, I don't know, this song, it doesn't make me, I just don't feel much when I listen to this song, that's tantamount to saying your existence and experience on this earth it doesn't measure up to much for me. And that's tough, right? This is why I think artists have it tougher than entrepreneurs in some sense. And that's scary. So like the list of things that can slow us down from that is long. And so as far as like how to approach that, I like doing things where, this is weird, but like the people who I know and I'm close to, a lot of times I don't like sharing my creative stuff with them. I like sharing with strangers because I don't care about strangers' opinions, right? So that I do the sneaky thing about play it for people without letting them know it's mine. But I also, again, I've had licks. I've screwed up and had a lot of failures, which is like this source of extreme power. So I just feel like much more confident about it. And the other thing, by the way, there's nothing to shake your confidence more than to get a big win. Because like what happens for a lot of people is you think you're like, oh, I'm a baller. I'm operating at this high level. And then you're like, oh, wait. But now if I make a mistake, I go back down. And like I can't go backwards. And like I had this huge thing of like, no, it doesn't work that way. You just got to appreciate that stuff. But I don't know. I'm also speaking about that with some like I sound like I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to pretend that I've got that all sorted.
Yeah, that's something I always try and keep in mind. I have this philosophy in the back of my mind, which is as my YouTube channel grows, my bar for what makes a good video I'm allowed to post gets lower. So I always, something that Gary Vaynerchuk says that really resonates is that the best thing you can do for your creativity and your channel right now is to make a video that you know will not work. And so sometimes I do a video where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to talk to the camera for 4 minutes and just rant about something. And okay, feels scary, but I'm just going to hit the upload button because I need to keep the bar for uploading a video as low as it can possibly be. Because as soon as the bar goes too high, at that point, it's like, oh, I can't post a video that is not going to get at least 100,000 views in the first 24 hours. And that's not a good place to encourage creativity.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody in the chat who's like, Ali is this god and he never has to worry about stuff. No, he has the burden of like, I've had videos that have gotten hundreds of thousands of views and he's got that frame of reference. Y'all in the chat who are like trying to get started, like you don't have any of that pressure, right? And one of the learnings you get here is that pressure doesn't matter. The thing I would point right back to you, Ali, that I think is helpful is whose bar is it? And is there one bar? I think there's lots of bars, right? And this also goes back to the life partner thing is sometimes you'll be so smitten with someone and you think they're great. And you're just not like, they just don't care about you. And that's like this brutal thing, but someone else is going to see you in the same way that you see them, right? And that your successes in life, just I've met so many people who are externally, everything's great. And then they're like really dissatisfied. And this goes back to the money conversation about once you make above a certain amount of money, it doesn't add any actual happiness to your life, right? So I think there's a lot in there, but the question about like, whose bar are you trying to stick to and what level of achievement, that's just something that helps by just having more experience and having a life well lived, right? Life with ups and downs. And honestly, like I have, what's funny is like I have 2 failures, right? Well, I have many failures, but 2 company failures. Nobody remembers them. No one remembers your failures, which is like, you kind of only believe that until you experience it. But it's really powerful to realize like, all that dumb stuff I did, nobody remembers, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar for all the creative stuff as well. Like I was reading this in a blog post that like, on most successful blogs, 98% of the content isn't read by anyone, but it's the 2% of the bangers that people care about and think, oh my God, this is an amazing blog. And so you don't need to worry about publishing stuff because if it's bad, like no one cares about it. No one remembers it.
Yeah.
But if it's good, then it's a breakout success. So it's such limited downside.
Let me ask you this. There's something related to that of when you have a couple bangers, you get known as the person known for that thing. And I wonder about that a lot. Of my previous company, I did like entrepreneurship education, right? And so I love entrepreneurship and I love startups, but I'm really more passionate about video these days. And my brand is very much like, at least certainly on LinkedIn and all these other places, is known as this entrepreneur guy, an entrepreneur education guy. Do you ever feel like, because I feel like sometimes the world only has room for like 1 or 2 keywords per person. And for most people, they can only think of like 1 word. And do you ever fear that like they might think of you just as like YouTube doctor or, and maybe you're like, actually, that's 2 things and they're both awesome. But do you ever think about this? Because I don't know if that's a real fear or just something I've thought and I'm a little scared of, but isn't something to actually worry about.
Mate, I think about this like every day. This is like sometimes the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing that people always describe me as, like, if I, occasionally I find myself being mentioned on a random podcast, and they say, "Oh, is that Doctor YouTuber guy?" And it's always that. It's always Doctor YouTuber guy. And the thing that I worry about is that if I do decide, like at the moment, I'm thinking working 2 or 3 days as a doctor, emergency medicine would be a pretty solid life. But if I decide that actually this is not for me and I want to become a full-time writer or something, at that point, I've gone away from this being the Dr. YouTuber guy and I'm just a random dude on the internet, or I'm just a productivity guru on the internet or whatever. And that really scares me. And I feel like at the moment, it's sort of like the golden shackles or the golden handcuffs of being tied to the Dr. YouTuber identity. But then on top of that, I also, like, when my channel started to pop because I made a video about the iPad, at that point, like overnight, my channel went from a channel aimed mostly at exclusively at students to a channel being half students or half tech people. So now it's like, okay, well, I'm the sort of, some of my stuff is study related, but the tech people don't care about that. But like some of my stuff is about tech, but like the studying people are like, bro, why are you talking about iPhone? I can't afford an iPhone. It sort of pulled me in these different directions. And now I just try very hard not to think about it. I just think, you know what? I'm making a video that I would have wanted to see 3 years ago. And that is sort of how I think about it.
Yeah. A few things going on there. Let's go to the musician metaphor. There's a lot of musicians. So there's some musicians who are like one-hit wonders, right? And they get known as the people who do that one song. Yeah. And you know that pisses them off because it means like literally every concert they ever play for the rest of their life, they have to play that song. But think about it, right? They're living the dream, the thing they set out to do, which is they're playing music, right? Most musicians don't even get that opportunity. So it's definitely like a luxury problem, I think. The other thing is, one thing I'm really interested in, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who they're successful for reasons that they don't know. Stuart Butterfield of Slack is a big one of this, and he did Flickr before that. If you ask them, why were you successful? They're honest and they say they don't know. And when they said it in such compelling ways that I realized how many other entrepreneurs with startups, they give a narrative because that's what human beings do. We're wired for stories and to think that, it's successful because we worked hard and we were creative. Yeah. And a lot of things like we don't know why things work. And if that's the case, like we don't have any control why people respond to us in the first place, right? And so Joe Rogan says this about his podcast, and he actually feels a lot of like he has the world's most popular podcast, and he doesn't know why people like it. Yeah. And he says that's why we're not changing anything. We're gonna because he knows that if he doesn't know why it works, but if they change something, it might stop working. And so he just wants to keep that sense of like open curiosity and exploration. And what I'm thinking about is like I have ideas about why my previous company worked. I have ideas about why my previous companies didn't work, but I don't know if I trust them. I don't know if they're real. And I think the best thing we can do is not sweat about it too much. And if I think if you're making an impact, if you're helping people, those are good forces to follow and just keep seeing where they go, you know?
Yeah, it reminds me of this, that there's this quote from Derek Sivers, which I think is my favorite quote of all time, which I often return to, which is that, I think it goes like, never forget why you're really doing what you're doing. Are you having fun? Are you helping people? Are you profitable? Isn't that enough? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, that is. And if you're an ambitious person, sometimes you compare yourself against others, right? And one thing that kind of makes me feel good is that there's no happy billionaires. Most billionaires you meet, they don't need to be doing what they're doing. So clearly they're doing it for a reason other than money. And the thing about billionaires is they don't have, like you have this thing that they don't have, which is you have enough, right? And again, that kind of goes back to like, I enjoy the chase that I think I would keep doing the work I'm doing if I didn't get paid for it, just because I like it. So I think that's helpful. You know, there's that saying, thief is the comparison of joy, and kind of we all get into that. But I don't know, the other thing about this is that's so frustrating is like, let's say you're practicing meditation, and one day you have this like awesome meditation session, and you open your eyes and you have this beautiful soft focus, and the world is there, and you're locked in. Next day you sit down and it just doesn't come. It's the same thing like a success, right? You get a big win and you're like, all right, I'm at this new level, and you realize, oh no, that might have been, this curve was like this more than a plateau, right? And if we can't control these things, then it's just like, well, let's just keep going, right? And if you, per Derek Sivers, enjoy the people you're doing it with, enjoy the work you're doing. And one way to look at it is the inverse. If you're having to spend time with a crappy person, change that. That probably doesn't need money to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Final thing I want to talk to you about is what was the story behind how you met your life partner, and how did you know that she was the one?
She's over there. I don't know if, hold on, let me. So She's going to hear this whole thing. So I've started my company. This company, my previous one, was called 3-Day Startup. And I was hitting Microsoft hard for sponsorship, right? We had this like awesome, she just gave me a funny look. We had this awesome network of like universities that bought into our vision of university entrepreneurship. And everybody knows startups are cool and matter and that they help an economy. So you should spend your money on that versus like all these other fields I'd crap on, but I'm not going to do it specifically because then all the people who major in that are going to get mad. Point is that Microsoft is not writing me a big check, which I'm hitting them hard for. What they are doing is they say, hey, we'll fly you to the Chicago Ideas Conference where there's a TED Talk and all this other stuff. I'm like, all right, maybe I can get something out of that. And I am very much an introvert, but I've gotten so much value in my life going to conferences and meeting people. Guide for young people. You get nothing out of like the presentations at conferences. This is why we have YouTube. This is why we have books. Like the speakers are the dumbest reason to go to a conference. That's a waste of time. The value there is in the hallways and the people you meet. And suck it up and just start introducing yourself to people. You'll do it terribly at first, but then you'll get better. But I'm at this dinner for Microsoft. I probably should have not mentioned their name because I'm going to slag on them. But this dinner was miserable. It was like so boring. And there were like some VPs there. And the VPs were like not people that like, not very interesting, important people. And there's this really good looking photographer there. So I am bored out of my mind. So I start chatting her up and it's going terribly. I tell her this joke that I think is funny. She doesn't think it's funny at all. But I don't know, I'm just getting this feeling of like, man, I really like this. I like this woman. And then I dropped this whole awful line, which I said, listen, you're not leaving here without me getting your phone number. And she like rolls her eyes. And then she starts leaving because her shift is done. And I go like this, like, no, don't leave. She gives me her phone number. We end up having coffee later. And it was just an interesting spark. And then our paths don't really cross again. And I fly back from Chicago to Austin. And then 8 years later, I see her in a coffee shop. And I thought I knew her from somewhere. And we started talking. And here we are.
8 years later.
Yeah.
Damn. How long ago was this? 8 years later.
I don't know. A long time.
Are we talking like years or months or weeks or?
Years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And how sort of, presumably other kind of relationships before this one, how did you know that this was like, quote, the one?
Great question, because it's so much more than about that, right? It's about anything in life is like that. There isn't, first of all, like, don't trust your feelings on this. Your feelings are these things that evolution gave you to not get eaten by a tiger when there's a rustle in some bushes and you're like, and I had certain like tons of feelings and emotions, but it was also, for me, it was important to do research, to spend time with who I didn't want to be with, right? And or like realize what spoke to me and what didn't. And do not trust Hollywood, or for the most part, don't even trust books about this. There's like some books that really like capture the human heart, and they're like very elegant expressions of it. But the human heart is not one-dimensional, and that your heart is different than my heart. And so we have to go figure out the thing that speaks to you. But like everything in life, you just got to go get seasoning, right? You got to go figure out what you like. One other big challenge we have is like we shape our preferences based on a movie we saw or a book we read. And then we're molding ourselves after someone else. And so we got to go find what works for us. And by the way, the stories I tell about what have worked for me, there's plenty of your audience is not going to be helpful or useful at all. There's a portion of them who it is, right? And the portion of who it is, they'll stay in my universe. They'll like subscribe to my email list. They'll follow me on Twitter, and it will continue to be beneficial to them. But the people who I can't help, who I have nothing to offer, they're going to go find someone who does. I bet your audience is the same way. And I just take a lot of joy in helping people. And I'm also, as I said, I'm older, so I've taken my licks. I have my scars. I've made a bunch of mistakes. And that's kind of what mentorship is, right? Mentorship is passing that down to try to help the next generation avoid some of those mistakes, which is impossible. But that is something, and that's actually something I very personally struggle with. I'm incredibly good at learning from experience. It's more efficient to learn from others, but when I see people who are really successful, they don't point to learning from others. They point to learning from themselves. And so that's why it shaped my philosophy around teaching that kind of stuff.
Okay, awesome. That seems like a fantastic place to end this. Thank you very much for being so open and honest and transparent. Can you tell us a little bit about the course that you are running?
Thank you. I would love to plug some stuff.
Yes, please,
so,
plug
folks,
away.
I'm gonna dump in the chat. I'm using my personal account in the chat just so y'all know it. I didn't put my corporate account because, frankly, I just don't care that much about my YouTube subscribers. Like that you subscribe, I care about you. But there's my Twitter account. My email list is here. My email list is called Learning from Rule Breakers, and that's why I was really pumped when you told me that when you were 13, you said you were 16. I just think it's really interesting to learn from people who like do unconventional things. Like Kobe Bryant used to read the referee's handbook, and he did that to understand like basketball, right? So I talk about stuff like that. I talk about like El Chapo, who broke out of prison because he, dug tunnels out of the prison. I just think those are interesting ways to see the world, and so I write about stuff like that. And basically, as for entrepreneurs, for business people, it's mostly aspiring entrepreneurs. It's like, what is the thing that you're trying to do that like you want to start a company? Because a lot of people, they don't want to start a company now, but they want to eventually. And then the big thing I want to push, man, my enter key is broken, so I can't even put in my chat. Okay, so just go to bit.ly/camhauser. That's my, that'll get you to my newsletter. But as for like the big thing that I'm kind of pushing these days, and is starting next week, is my course on video. And this is the thing that I'm most excited about. It's called Minimum Viable Video, and it's just a course on how to learn video. So if you like the stuff that I've been talking about today, in this course, we're going to do stuff like that. I might make you go to a coffee shop and order a discount on your coffee. But what I'm going to do is, right now we're in YouTube chat and it's very public. In this course, we'll all be, it'll be like very kind of community driven. And the same kind of informal, friendly vibe is the vibe we're going to have in this course. So it'll be in the chat in a second. But basically, it's a month-long course where I teach you how to do video. We'll focus mostly on smartphones. So it'll be primarily how to use your iPhone or your Android. And we'll do some lighting. Like, we're not going to get too crazy in lighting. What you're going to do is you're going to make a ton of videos, and you're going to have feedback from people. There's this thing called the spotlight effect. And Ali, you were talking about how you got to get over the hump and just like release videos. The spotlight effect is the idea that we tend to notice too much, right? When Pinky the cat was on me earlier, she was like got fur like all over me. But at first I was worried about that, but then I was like, you know what? They're probably not even, actually there's some cat fur. The point is that you guys don't care if there's cat fur on me. It's not a big deal, right? And that the things that we notice are different than what other people notice. And so what this course offers is, yeah, I'll teach you, I'll give you great knowledge and information, but more importantly, you're going to make a ton of video, and you're going to have a structured way for people to give you feedback on your videos. And so you've got this nice little incubator to get this stuff done before you go and share them out in the world. So this is what this course is about. It's mad expensive. It's expensive because, I want you to take it seriously. I think it's going to get lots of individual attention. I keep talking about how everyone brings different things to video. Some people are really warm and magnetic on camera, but they need to learn editing, and they need to learn sequencing and storytelling. There's other people who they're really stiff and creepy and weird on camera, and they're great with the technical side. And so I spend a lot of like individual time with all of my students just to like help them with that sort of thing. But if that's interesting to you, I'd love to see you all there. We start next Monday, and it's going to be pretty special. So those are things. Join my newsletter, or follow me on Twitter, and take this course if you're interested.
Amazing. And I'm going to be a guest speaker on yours, and you're going to be a guest speaker on mine, and yeah, we'll make that happen.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for the Ali guest speaker.
Amazing.
But anyway, to the Ali gang, thank you so much. Really pumped to share with you and to be part of this. And Ali, thank you for the opportunity. I'm really grateful, and I really admire the kind of the work you're doing in the world.
So thank you all the time.
Yeah,
this has been like basically 2 hours of you helping me out with my life. So I really appreciate it. And I will, guys, thank you very much for joining this episode of The Deep Dive. Follow Cam on Twitter. That's probably where you're most active. Link in the video description.
Yeah.
And yeah, check out his course if you want to learn video and all that stuff. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Awesome. Thanks, so. Cheers.